So this morning, we will be talking about the review of related literatures and studies. Again, this is included in the introduction. This will be written after the scope and the limitation. I hope that is clear. This is not a separate chapter, or this is not a separate section in the whole paper ha, kasi we are using the IMRAD format. So that we have the chapter 2 intended only for the review of related literatures, but this time this one is being fused with the introduction. So let us talk about this and how are we going to write your RRL. So when you say literature review, from the name review class, we are not just copy pasting information from different sources, but we are analyzing it. So we are doing a critical analysis of the published body of knowledge. So it may be from a printed material like books and magazines, or it can be from an online source, any website, article from a credible website. Okay, so again, how do we do that? Again, we don't do copy pasting, but either we summarize the information, we classify them if they belong to the same category, and we compare results of previous studies. That's how we review our literatures. Okay, studies, that includes the studies ha, kasi we do comparisons of the previous studies in terms of their findings, if they have similarities in their findings, or if they have the same topic but they have a contradicting result. That's how we do the literature review. So we have two types: the conceptual literature. These are the information coming from printed materials like books, journals, pwede din siyang coming from online sources. But you have to take note that if you classify it as a literature, it's data free, okay, or it's non-empirical. What do you mean by that? It's just an article stating this information, this kind of information about your topic, but it is not really a product of research. Okay, I mean, it does not contain any findings from from an actual experiment or from an actual investigation. Okay, so pwede din siyang coming from either local or foreign sources. So as long as it's data free, it will be included in the conceptual literature. So these are the sources, example of our sources ng ating related literatures. You can get information from almanacs. Most of the time, it's from the books, dictionaries for our definitions, and then encyclopedias, handbooks, and then again, you may most of the time our literatures are actually coming from the internet, and we have magazines and newspapers. So again, take note, if it is a literature, it means that it is data free kasi we separate the related studies. So I hope that is clear, kasi most of the time when I check the RRL of the student researches, nagkakahalo-halo yung related studies and related literatures. Minsan nalalagay sa literatures yung mga supposedly under the studies. Kasi sa studies, this is really the one that is coming from actual observation or experimentation. So this is empirically based, which means there is really an actual investigation and we have an actual data also. Okay, so what are the examples of this? Syempre, yung mga scientific papers, yung mga thesis and dissertations, either published or even unpublished. Pwede siyang printed or sa online, as long as it's a study, it's a research class or a thesis, that will be under the related studies. So all other information that you're going to include in your research that is not really a thesis or a dissertation will be under here in the related literatures. Okay, I hope we can easily identify that. So what are our sources for our related studies? I have mentioned a while ago, we have the dissertations and our thesis. It may be coming from the internet. We have a lot of research journals also. Pwede siyang printed, pwede ding hindi. Nakapublish siya online. And yung mga survey reports, those are actually under the related studies. Remember, when you do a survey, you have an actual data. Okay? So under yan siya sa related studies. Do you have questions? You can ask questions ha. If ever you want to clarify something sa related literature and related studies. If none, you can send your questions sa chat box. If nahihirapan kayo with your microphone. This one is just quick. Actually, hindi natin ito, hindi talaga tayo abot ng 12 neto kasi konti lang naman yung i-discuss natin for the RRL. Pero actually, ito yung pinakamahaba na part sa paper ninyo. Now, class, we also have the so-called gray literatures. What do you mean by gray literatures? They are either published or unpublished. Kung published naman siya, it's on non-commercial form. But take note that gray literatures and research are also accepted. So, okay lang. If, for example, you find an article that is related to your study and it is considered gray literature, pwede niyo siyang isali in your paper. So what are these gray literatures? We have government reports, we have policy statements and mga issue papers, example sa government, mga conference proceedings, yung mga preprint and postprint na mga articles, thesis and dissertations class, kahit na yung mga nasa library natin, thesis of the previous batches are considered here in the gray literature, and they are also accepted as your reference in your paper. Then mga research reports, geological and geophysical surveys, maps, newsletters, and bulletins and fact sheets. These are all accepted, though they belong in gray literature kasi they are either unpublished or pwede din namang published pero yung mga non-commercial form. Iba kasi talaga yung na-publish talaga in an official journal or na-publish siya, for example, ng official site, example ng Department of Health. Okay, outside from these sources, we call that gray literatures. But then again, they are still accepted in research. So why do we do a literature review? Bakit kailangan natin itong gawin in research? So we have the following purposes. We have the following reasons why we are doing RRL. Siyempre, for us to find out more information about our research topic. That's the number one reason why we are conducting a literature review. And when we are actually selecting our topic or selecting our problem, most of the time, we do RRL. That is for us to identify gaps in the literature. Later, I'll be talking what a research gap is. And then we may also look for different people, even significant people who are also working in the same field with us. Okay, and we can identify seminal works related to our topic, even the methodologies that we are going to use in our research. We are actually getting that through a literature review. Okay, so we can also look for studies which are related sa sarili nating studies, and we can do comparison. Okay, and then if we're going to make our theoretical framework, remember these are theories or concepts either in education, in psychology, or even scientific, wherein we are going to anchor our study. That's the theoretical framework. We are actually doing an RRL there. Okay, we are doing a review of related literature. Okay, so these are the purposes of why we are doing a literature review. Okay, wait lang. Have here key points of literature review. These are the things that you need to look if you are doing a literature review. Syempre, the theory or what the research or the article says. What is it all about? You need to know that. And then if it is a research or a thesis, you need to look into the methodology, how they did their investigation. If it is an experimental research, you may evaluate how they did the experiment and look at it if it is also applicable in your study. Okay, and you may also do literature review because we are actually looking for what is missing, what is the missing information about your research topic. That's what we call a research gap. Okay, sige, copy. Okay, so again, when you say a research gap, it's an area or a topic about your research wherein there is possible missing information or there is an insufficient data that will limit us to achieve or make a conclusion for a certain topic. So itong research gap, makikita natin ito for example while we are selecting a research topic. Gusto natin pag-aralan itong certain topic na ito. And when we look at the available literatures, parang may kulang. Itong part na ito, hindi pa siya napagtutuunan ng pansin. Wala pa talaga masyadong study na nagawa. Meron pa mga kulang na information about that certain topic. That is actually a research gap. And research gap is very important para alam natin kung saan tayo papasok. Okay? So since ito, hindi pa ito siya na pag-aaralan, ito yung pag-aaralan natin. So that's how you select your topic. Okay? So actually, literature review, it's not just about making your introduction. Before even making your paper, you actually did a literature review. Okay? That's how you selected your research problem or your research topic. Now, we have types of literature review. Number one, we have evaluative review, wherein we are going to evaluate or analyze existing research papers, pwede siyang thesis or dissertation or any research study, and we are going to make a comparison. So example, you have the same plant materials and the same plant materials yung pinag-aralan nila, different authors, and then we are going to evaluate if they have, example, the same findings. Example, this plant is really a good alternative stain for a certain method of staining. Yun yung result ng isang investigator, and we'll evaluate another one if parehas lang ba yung kanilang result or they have contradicting result. That's evaluative review. Okay, we can do that in our RRL. Okay, so this actually is important if we want to provide a further discussion about our topic. Okay, if that's evaluative review. Now we have exploratory review. So from the name itself, exploratory, we are going to explore additional information about our research topic or our problem or our research questions. Okay, so like if your topic is about COVID-19, so we are going to explore all and exhaust all possible references that we can find for us to really get enough information about our topic, and then discuss talaga natin siya thoroughly. Magkakaroon tayo ng focus or ma-sharpen natin yung ating research questions in our study. Okay, so yung mga unanswered natin na mga questions in our research can also be answered here when we do exploratory review. Now, most of us are actually doing instrumental review also, especially if we don't know how are we going to do our investigation or our observation. So most of the time, we look for existing and completed research materials, and we're going to look at the instrument that they use. If that is a survey, we're going to evaluate their questionnaire if that is also applicable for us. If it is applicable, then we can adopt it. Or if it is an experimental research, then we may use the same procedure that they did with their research. Kasi for us, it will be like applicable. Okay? So that is class and instrumental review. So marami talagang gamit yung ating RRL. So not just about reading a lot of information about our certain topic, but this will also help us to identify the specific methodology that is applicable and suitable for our own research. So yun yung types of literature review. Now, how about the sources? Though I have identified sources for conceptual literature and related studies a while ago, let's look into the different kinds of sources that we have. Now, we classify our sources as primary, secondary, or tertiary literatures. I believe you have this also in your English class, no? Yung primary, secondary, and tertiary. But let's just have a review para ma-refresh kayo. So pag sinabing primary literature, this is the original work. This is the first, syempre original. So siya pinakaunang piece of work about your topic. Okay? So it may be a data coming from an actual experiment. Siyempre sila ang gumawa nun, sinulat nila yung data nila. So it's a first-hand data. Or pwede din namang thesis. Since the thesis is done by the original author, they do the actual experimentation, for example, or like they did a survey and they have the actual data. That's a primary literature. Mga reports, government reports, conference proceedings, all of these are considered primary literatures as long as it is the original source of data. The first na work about your research topic, again, primary literature ang tawag nun. Yung subsequent publication of the primary literature is called secondary literature. So example, we have here the journals. So syempre, if yung thesis, i-publish natin sa mga journals natin, and then especially if the author or the editor magkakaroon ng like mga edits along the paper, no? I mean, some parts of the papers are edited or merong mga commentaries yung mga magpa-publish ulit, magiging secondary literature na siya. So for example, books are actually considered as a secondary literature. Kasi yung author niyan, class, hindi naman sila yung talagang original source of information. Hindi naman sila yung unang nagtrabaho about that topic. So, gumawa sila ng libro, for example, about sa medtech na book, example, clinical chemistry. Yung mga author dyan, kinuha lang din naman nila yung mga information from the original source and they compile it in a book and then that's it. You have your book now. So it is actually considered just a secondary literature. Even the newspapers, the information in the newspapers are not actually, ano lang siya, subsequent na lang siya na publication. So like they interview people who have first-hand na experience over a phenomenon or an occurrence. So magiging second-hand na lang yon na information and they publish it in a newspaper. So secondary literature na lang siya. So anything that is just a subsequent publication of the primary source, magiging secondary literature na siya. Now, how about yung tertiary literatures? We also call this search tools. Okay? Search tools na lang yung tertiary literatures kasi this one will help us class identify and find the primary and the secondary literature. So what are the examples of our tertiary literatures? We have the indexes. Remember, they are actually listing there the different sources. If meron tayong hinahanap, abstracts ito ha, abstracts. Encyclopedias, compilation na lang siya of everything, primary man or secondary literature, bibliographies. So, di ba, magiging search tools siya para madali nating mahanap yung hinahanap natin na information. And textbooks and reference books may also be considered a tertiary literature, especially if the book is just a summary or a synthesis of a research na kinuha lang din nila from a secondary literature. So their source is not actually the original source, but yung subsequent publication na, and that makes it a tertiary literature. Okay? So as much as possible, syempre we'll have the primary literature, but if it is like impossible for us to look for the primary ones, then we may also use the secondary and tertiary literatures in our RRL. Okay? Any question or clarification about this one? Review lang naman yun. Wait lang. Sandali. Bakit ang daming nag-chat? Mag-release. Wala. Mamaya ko na i-reply si Ma'am Yes. Okay. So, if none, let's continue with the 5 key steps in literature review. Ito na talaga yung gagawin ninyo, ha? These are the steps that you need to do for you to create your own RRL. So, syempre, the first thing you need to do is to search for relevant literatures. I'll discuss this one by one later. And then, step 2, evaluate sources. Then, identify themes, debates, and gaps. And then, after that, you outline the structure of your literature, your RRL, and then lastly, you really need to write it. Write talaga nakalagay dyan ha kasi it's copy pasting is a mortal sin in doing an RRL. Okay? So let's talk about the first step. Step 1, you search for relevant literature. If you have your topic na sa research ninyo, syempre, magsusearch ka na ngayon ng RRL. So you may do a list. You can make a list of the keywords that you're going to use in searching, especially if you are searching via online. So maggagawa ka ngayon ng list that you think are related sa study mo. You may use class Boolean operators for you to widen the information or the sources that you can see, especially sa online. You can use Boolean operators examples niyan, and, or, and not. Okay? Para mapadami mo yung makikita mo na references or malimit mo. Pwede din naman, especially if lagyan mo siya ng not. Okay? Boolean operators yan ha. So you search for relevant sources. Okay? Pwede siyang from printed materials or from the online source. Now, if meron nang lumabas na maraming literatures pag-search mo, the next step is to evaluate and select your sources. You have to make sure that the source is credible. Okay? Especially in the internet, maraming masyadong fake news. Maraming masyadong mga myths, meron, especially sa medical world, may mga medical claims na that are not really proven kung totoo ba talaga or hindi. So again, you have to evaluate your source. So most of the time, class, yung kinukunan natin, kung online ha, ito yung mga website na kinukunan natin ng information na credible. Yung .gov, it's the website of the government. And then yung .edu, meaning it's an educational website. It's owned by example, a university. Ganon. What else? By the way, yung mga .com kasi class, hindi lahat dyan credible. So you really have to evaluate pa. Basahin nyo muna siya and then compare it with other sources if parehas lang ba yung laman nila. Okay? Pwede din .org. So, ito yung mga examples of like credible websites that we can use. NCBI, what's NCBI nga? National, I am actually using that. I forgot the meaning. Wait, let's see. PubMed, no? Yeah, nag-end pa rin naman yan sa .gov, National Center for Biotechnology Information. That is still considered credible though. So you can use that one also. Yung Wikipedia.org yan. But our problem with Wikipedia is it can be, it can be edited by anyone. So that's our problem with the Wikipedia. So as much as possible, kung you're finding scientific information, doon na kayo sa talagang credible source. Like yung sa mga education na website. Wait. Kaya marag mapalang na akong laptop. Okay. Pwede yun siya. And sa mga research class, yung mga mga tawag dyan? Mga publications, mga like online journals, pwede yun siya. Kaya lang yung problem natin with other sources, especially pag thesis or dissertation, mayroong bayad. So yung mga free access lang yung most of the time makukuha natin. Pero yung mga researchers, meron yan silang hack. Pero yan silang ginagawa, no? Diba? Na ma-access nila yung may mga bayad na sources. Alam niyo yun? Kung paano? Like, paano ma-access yung mga may bayad na mga journals, may bayad na mga thesis. So, kung alam niyo yun, kayo na bahala doon. Okay? Sige. So take note ha, after evaluating your source, if may napili na kayong credible source, you have to take note of the data na kailangan mo for you to properly cite them. Kasi remember, the information are not your idea. These information are coming from other authors. So you need to give credit where credit is due. So you have to take note yung mga kailangan sa bibliography, like the name of the author, the year of publication, the title of the article, yung website, kung saan mo siya kinuha, yung URL niya, or even the date of retrieval. Especially for online sources, you really have to take note of the date of retrieval kasi minsan nawawala siya. 'Di ba? Or minsan may nababago sa information. Okay? So after that, we will be identifying themes, debates, and gaps. So I told you a while ago that doing an RRL is not just about copy-pasting information. From the word review, we are going to review what is already known, ano yung mga nakasulat doon na mga information or data sa related literatures and studies na yon. And at the same time, you have to like identify trends and patterns, saan ba sila magkakapareho, ano ba yung contradicting among them, or meron ba tayong themes Yung themes class, na-identify natin yon kasi when we read the literatures, paulit-ulit. Paulit-ulit siya. Nagre-recur siya along the way. So maraming information about this and that will constitute one theme in your literature. Okay? Yung mga conflicts and mga contradictions between findings of the different studies, you may also identify that. Okay? And yung mga pivotal na mga publications, yung mga talagang strong ang influence ng mga theories and yung mga strong yung influence ng mga findings of the study, you may identify that also. And you may even identify the gaps. What is missing from all the literatures na nabasa mo? Okay? Kung kailangan ba natin siyang i-address or hindi. So pag na-identify mo na yan lahat, pwede ka na ngayong mag-outline sa iyong structure of the RRL. So yung gaano kahaba yung RRL, nakadepende yun sa study ninyo. Wala tayong requirement talaga. And kung ilang studies, ilang literatures, wala ding requirement, yun. So it's up to you, how are you going to write your RRL section. And you may choose one of the following or you can mix them. Okay? Again, meron tayo ditong different styles in writing the RRL. You may choose one only, but you can also mix these different strategies. So when you say chronological, meaning isunod-sunod mo yung information starting from the example like general idea about your topic, tapos mag-move on ka sa mga specific areas. Okay, that's chronological, meaning that you will arrange the information na nakuha mo from different sources with meron kang pattern according to the development of the data or the development of the whole idea itself. Okay, so this one is the simplest approach in research. For example, your studies about COVID-19. So mag-write ka, COVID-19. Lagay ka ng definition. Tapos mag-move on ka sa ano bang kailangan mong i-discuss. Mag-move on ka sa cause ng COVID-19. Tapos after that, mag-move on ka na naman sa mga signs and symptoms. So yung development ng topic mo over time. Pero this is not just simply listing and summarizing ha. Magsusulat ka pa rin based sa information na nabasa mo, pero meron kang parang chronological order. Okay, kaya tinawag siyang chronological strategy in making an RRL. Itong thematic, ito yung mostly ginagamit sa school, sa ating institution. Kasi ang ginagawa ng mga students is thematic, merong themes. Okay, mag-identify sila ng themes and then that's how they organize the information in their literature. Let me show you an example para you can picture out paano nila ginawa yun. Ito na. Buksan muna natin. Hindi ko kasi siya nabuksan. Hindi mo na pong connection. Wait lang. Well, let's see and let's try to identify the strategy they used in making their RRL. Yung the same examples na lang para may ano siya, continuity. Yung sa pinakita ko sa inyo last time. You ask question ha, baka may hindi kayo naintindihan dyan. Mahihip lang ako na open dito. What? Oh, kasi na yun. Ba't tayo makita? Ay, ayan na. Sige. Example, ganito, class. So, this one is the same study I presented to you last time, ha? Yung sa previous batch ninyo sa MedTech. Let's look at their RRL. So, this is still part of the introduction, ha? After ito ng scope and delimitation, let's see how they made their RRL. Okay, we have here the RRL after the scope and delimitation. So they talk about the millennials. Oh, this one is tuloy-tuloy. So meaning they actually use the chronological order for chronological strategy for their RRL. So as you can see, walang themes, tuloy-tuloy lang. Pag binasa, mahaba ito class. So pag binasa natin ito, in-arrange lang nila yung kanilang topics in chronological order. Okay, like they started with a discussion about millennials. Ayan, millennials pa ito lahat. Millennials. Ano ito siya ha? Kanang sagol-sagol ni siya. Related studies and conceptual literature. Isa na siya. Or I don't know if they separated the related studies. Let's see later. And then, what else? Millennials pala ito lahat. And then, they move on to like the fear mongering and then the medical fake news. Okay. Ayan. Though, this one is like a combination of chronological and thematic kasi sa baba pala, they have like themes here identified. So these are examples of themes and then they have the discussion there coming from their sources. Okay, I don't know if they have separated the related studies though. Let's see. Wala na. Okay, so actually lahat nandito na lahat. Related studies and related literatures. Pero nakaisa na siya. Depende sa topic na dinidiscuss nila. So again, this one is an example of a chronological with a little thematic strategy. Little lang kasi konti lang naman yung sineparate nila na theme. Pero this is more of a chronological RRL. So let's see the others. Sino bang gumamit ng thematic analysis dito? Baka may gumamit ng thematic. Makikita nyo agad, ma-identify nyo agad yung thematic analysis class. Kasi may mga na-identify talaga nila yung themes. Kaya hinay mo na akong collection. Gaya ni mo loader. Okay, nag-load na siya. Ay. Kasi anong hinay ang connection? Load. Let's wait. Okay, malapit na kasi this is scope and delimitation. After scope and delimitation, we'll have, okay, the review of related literature and study. So as you can see, you can actually see that this one is thematic analysis as they have identified themes here, sub-themes, and then they provided the discussions in every theme. Okay, so like they first have the demographic and face mask disposal. And then they have COVID-19 outbreak, face masks as mostly used PPE. And then yung mga knowledge, so nakahiwalay-hiwalay according to themes. Ito yung tinatawag natin na thematic strategy in making our RRL. Yung kaninang example is a perfect example of a chronological strategy. Walang themes na na-identify. Diretso-diretso lang yung kanilang paggawa ng kanilang RRL. Syempre, hindi yun copy-pasted. Gumawa talaga sila ng RRL with their sources based on the topic that they are discussing. Okay, so mostly itong dalawa yung ginagamit, chronological or thematic. Itong si methodological, most likely kasi this is important in the methodology section. Kasi what we are trying to extract from the literature and the studies are actually the methods, the techniques that the previous researchers use to gather the data, and like we want to adapt their strategy or also their methods also. So like we are just copy pasting it. Okay? That's it. So sa methodological, yun yung hinahanap natin, yung methods, how they did their data gathering. Kasi pwede natin siyang i-adapt. And then sa theoretical, most of the time we use this one for the theoretical framework, wherein we look for certain theories or models or even like concepts or laws that you think is applicable in your research, or we can anchor our research. Okay, so I have already discussed what a theoretical framework is and ano yung kailangan yung kunin doon sa literature na yon para mabuo ang theoretical framework ninyo. Okay, so have a review on that. Now, if you have decided what strategy are you going to use in making your RRL, then you start writing your literature review. So it's actually just like making a simple article or a simple yung write-up, kasi magfa-follow pa rin tayo ng this same way, like we have the introduction and then the body and then the conclusion na part. So sa introduction, syempre you have to clearly establish what you are trying to focus or anong purpose ba ng literature review na yon. Tapos sa body, syempre, that's where you are going to discuss, class. Mag-discuss ka dyan sa mga information na nakuha mo sa mga sources. So sa body, you can do summarization or synthesis of the different information na nakuha mo. Summarize mo siya, i-synthesize, you make it as a coherent whole para mabuo yung body. Pwede din ikaw mag-analyze or mag-interpret, especially for findings of the related studies, or mag-evaluate ka. Pwede mong i-mention ang strength or ang weakness ng certain study na nire-review mo, especially related studies, ha. So gumagawa talaga tayo dito ng well-structured paragraph in terms sa body of our RRL. So gagamit kayo ng mga techniques sa English na natutunan nyo. Marami kayo masyadong English class 1 to 6. Gamitin nyo yun lahat. Okay, so like you draw connections between one topic to another, and you may give comparisons. You can do you can compare or contrast information that you have collected. And if pwede kayong gumamit ng subheadings kung ang napili ninyong strategy is thematic. Okay, separate niyo siya into different themes. And lastly, in the conclusion class, you provide a summary of the key findings na nakuha mo sa iyong literature. So the conclusion is most likely like a synthesis of everything. Kung ano yung mga key information na nakuha mo sa lahat ng binasa mo and lahat ng in-include mo in your RRL, summarize mo yun siya sa pinaka-last. That will be your conclusion, or that will be your synthesis. Okay, so that's it for the literature review. Do you have questions? So again, itong sa kanila, this one is a thematic strategy. Actually, they have the introduction here, and then sa body naman, they have divided it into subheadings according to the themes they have identified. Okay, ito yung mga themes na na-identify nila. And by the way, sa isang theme class na ano na yan siya lahat, nandyan na lahat. Nandyan na yung mga information coming from conceptual literature. Meron na din dyan nakasali results of related studies. Okay, so hindi na natin kailangan talagang i-separate si related studies. Okay, as long as there will be connection from one paragraph to another. Okay, tapos ang ending natin, I don't know if this one is an edited work, though. So I don't know if they have the synthesis. Kasi on the last part, you will have the synthesis. Yeah, they have the synthesis and this will become our parang conclusion. So again, in here, you are going to summarize all the key findings in your RRL. Okay, so I believe you cannot picture this out yet since you still don't have your research. But when meron ng update, again, start with the introduction. Isunod nyo na lang itong RRL. Pero part pa rin siya ng introduction. Okay, that's it. Yun lang talaga actually gagawin ko this morning.